Hi, and welcome to the Top 1 Percentile podcast, where we explore the current events happening in education and discuss a few of them in details. So, this week we know that JEE Mains has released the city intimation dates. So, please go to the JEE Mains website to check the city and your date that you have gotten for your second session of JEE Mains starting from April 1st. GATE has also released the official result of 2025. So please go to the website and check your GATE results. Hope you have all done well. All the best. So going to stories regarding schools. So the two stories that was very important in the last 2 weeks has been the proposal from CBSE regarding the two board attempts in 10th and 12th and the ISC maths paper and what happened there. Okay, so let's take a deep dive into both of them individually and understand the pros and cons and how a student or a parent can prepare for the next stages. So if you actually look at the draft scheme available on the CBSE website for the 10th board examination from next year to be in two phases rather than a single phase. Okay, how are they trying to plan it and why did they do it and what will be the possible best ways to implement the same idea? Right. So, as part of the National Education Policy 2020, we know that two board proposal was proposed in order to accommodate the fact that most students end up performing under high pressure when it is a single board attempt. So, in order to relieve the board attempt pressure, that the two board attempt was proposed. So, the CBSE has now started to think about attempting this for only class 10. They have given a possible schedule for class 12 as well, but for now, based on the proposal, it will be started with only class 10. So, if you look through the proposal, you will notice that there is not really too much change regarding how a student needs to prepare in terms of their dates and timelines regarding the 10th and 12th preparations. So your exams will still be from February to March, which is the same as what is going on currently with no additional changes, but the big difference being the fact that the results will be announced by April 15th. This gives the students the opportunity to take up the exam again in attempt 2 that will be happening in May in order for an improvement. Earlier, the improvement was only allowed for students who have failed in the setup, and you had compartment exams scheduled in May post the result declaration in order for improvement. And if a student actually wanted to improve their scores in maths and science, let's say they got 60% and they wanted 90, they will have to actually attempt it the next year, and you didn't have a choice of attempting it within the same year. So the biggest advantage that this proposal gives is a class 10 student can take the exam in March, and in case he is not satisfied with this exam, he can again redo the exam in May. But be careful about this because according to the proposal, you will actually have to inform beforehand whether you are going to take the exam once or twice, and you cannot add an exam or directly appear for the second exam. You can opt out of writing the second exam if you are very satisfied with your first exam, but you cannot opt in to writing the second exam if you have not informed it beforehand. And if you are informing it beforehand in order to opt in for the second exam as well, remember that you will have to pay both the examination fees. And you can choose the subject that you are planning to take in for both the exams. Let's say maths and science, you want to have 2 attempts, but you are comfortable with English, social and let's say your languages, so you take it once. That's up to the student and the parent in consultation with school to decide. So the basic idea of the entire system is the fact that a student gets a chance to improve their scores within the same year, or rather within 3 months, so that they don't have to wait for another year for improvement. So this majorly comes as a boon for students who are either failing or let's say are in the below average category, because this will help the students to actually redo a paper in May while focusing on only that paper in order to improve their scores. But this also ensures that there is no separate compartment exam that will be conducted for students who have failed, and the passing certificate is only designed to be coming out after both the exams are done. They have also included the fact that the best of the exams will be considered for your scores. So in that case, similar to how a JEE student is preparing, you can attempt in January, you can attempt in April, and you get the best score to be your actual score that you get for counseling. You can actually do the same thing here also. So for your 11th grade admissions, you can actually work with your best 10th score while you have attempted it twice. Okay. So in terms of the cases where a student has failed in both the exams, they can again only attempt it the next year. But always be careful with this, that the practical and internal assessment will be conducted only once. So only the theory paper, that final theory paper that the student attempts, is actually going to be conducted twice, not the practical or the internal assessment papers. So that means throughout the year, the 20 marks out of 100 that maths teachers have with you, it doesn't matter. They will submit the score in January or February depending on the school, and that would be the same score that is submitted for your actual board assessment, irrespective of your theory score, whether it is March or May. So overall, so it's not really that much of a difference for schools as well, because they don't have to worry about changing the curriculum and how the pace of studying and everything. In fact, in terms of 11th admission, it makes it easier because most students will have a proper scorecard by April 15 in order to get admission into 11th. So they don't have to wait till May to get the admission. So actually schools can start quite early with actual scorecard of 10 rather than giving up the science stream, commerce stream and allocations based on some internal assessment. So this gives them a proper way of actually following through from 10th to 11th in a more gradual manner. Okay. So hopefully this has given you some idea regarding how the two board policy is going to be applied. So many people have confused that this might be very similar to the March and November attempt that you have in, let's say, open schooling and stuff like that, which is not the case. So please be careful with actually thinking out how you are going to plan your next 10th. And it is still a draft and there is no official announcement from CBSE yet regarding the final proposal for next year's paper. But there is a very good chance this will be implemented for 10th at least, because there is very little logistical changes in terms of actual dates of exam that needs to be worked out. So next year, think as if 17th of February would be your first exam, and you actually already have your date sheet in hand. So you can plan properly and ace the exams. So now let's go into the second other controversy that happened over the week, that is the ISC Maths 12th paper. Okay. So I have heard it from a lot of students and teachers thinking that the sample paper, specimen paper and the actual paper, there was a huge difference and the ISC should not be able to do this and all this. Okay, so I have actually gone through every single question in every paper, both the papers, and actually I made a table problem as to how many marks was allocated to each section, which type of question has come and everything. And based on this, the pattern of the question didn't change, the marking scheme has not changed, and overall, in terms of what is the allocation for matrices and determinants, differential equation integration, it has actually not changed at all. The only thing that has actually changed is that some of the questions that you expect as a 6 marker had come as 4 and vice versa, which is obviously possible. The fact that most schools, especially teachers, were caught red-handed and they have not prepared their students for a similar scenario falls on them, not on the board. The board actually did a very good job, and I don't actually see any reason why ISC is not allowed to do this. If there was a difference in, let's say, the number of 1 markers, 6 markers or 4 markers, yes, I would certainly agree that you cannot create such changes between the specimen paper and the main paper, because the specimen paper is what schools are supposed to use for their pre-board examination and get the students prepared. But in terms of which exact chapter needs to be the 6 marker or the 4 marker is not necessarily the same. Overall, the unit carries the same marks, and that is absolutely true. You can see that probability is 13 mark in the specimen papers, probability is 13 mark in the real paper. Matrices and determinants 10 marks, 10 marks. Only difference is probability actually had the exact same coverage, 3 1 markers, 1 4 marker and 1 6 marker, while matrices, you will notice that in the real paper, the actual paper, it came as 4 1 marker, 1 2 mark and 1 4 mark. But in the specimen paper, they had rather given it as 4 1 marker and 1 6 marker. This sort of a changes is obviously allowed across the board, and I don't see any reason why there was such a huge issue about it. The fact that the schools are not prepared, that tells me that schools are actually doing much less work. They are literally copy pasting the specimen paper and literally just changing the question. Same chapter, go to the same chapter. They are asking an intern to maybe change the question from the same chapter and saying, no, let's make the next paper. The fact that they are not following through based on possible marking schemes created on their own, based on the overall marking scheme based on each segment. So matrices and determinants is a segment, calculus, integral calculus, differential calculus, relations and functions with inverse trigono, and probability. All these are different segments that you can find in the 12th syllabus. This happens every year in CBSE, this happens every year in ISC, it happens in State Board, and nobody creates such a huge issue. And the same thing happened even 2 years back in ISC Maths, I think ICSE Maths class 10th, and again there was a huge issue, but that is more because of the unpreparedness of the schools and the teachers rather than unpreparedness for the students. Because of the fact that the schools and teachers were unprepared, they made sure that the students are actually not prepared enough for the exam. So next time, hopefully, parents and students can take the initiative, and maybe some of the teachers can take the initiative on their own and make up different types of sample papers so that the student doesn't find the real paper to be such a difficult task. So, beyond all this, I wanted to talk about what Top 1 Percentile podcast is actually going to do and how we are going to take it forward. So, overall, in the Top 1 Percentile podcast, you will notice that we will have a segment where we cover each week's news of what is happening in that week's educational news, what has come up, what needs to be planned, what needs to be done. And along with that, we are going to add segments, interviews, we are going to do a lot of other general public opinion based workout where we will actually be guiding you regarding not just JEE, NEET or other competitive exams, but rather throughout colleges, how to find interns, what are the research projects being worked on in IIT Madras, in other institutes, and all those other aspects. We are also in the process of finding out how can one go from, let's say, an engineering to a civil service. Wow, what are the different ways that people make career choices? How do people make choices in terms of their streams? So the idea of the podcast is to kind of enumerate the problems that students face, problems that parents face in order to help the students, and possibly even what schools and teachers actually face, and understand what are the possible pathways and how we can help them further. Hopefully you have found the podcast interesting. Please like, share, comment and subscribe, and please press the bell notification icon for future updates. So we will be doing this regularly from now onwards. Thank you.